Welcome to the Ironworks Underground podcast. This is episode number 1. My name's Christian Backus. I'm here with Josh Collins. Today we're going to kind of outline what we're going to do in this podcast, kind of talk about just random things, and go from there. So, yeah. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. My name is Josh Collins, Director of Strength and Conditioning here. Been about a year we've been doing this.
Yeah, you're in this building.
Yeah.
So probably you came on in July of 2020, so like mid-pandemic.
Yeah, right in the middle of the pandemic. Just moved down to Denver. Really had no idea what I was doing. We're still at Fit Industries.
Good old Fit Industries. R.I.P. They closed.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with this podcast, we're gonna go kind of more of like an uncut, underground feel to it. So forewarning, there could be cussing, there could be this, there could be that, conversations about random shit, whatever it is. So,
no nudity though.
Nah, no nudity.
Absolutely
No
nudity.
Jake Ferlisi shirtless pictures. Unfortunately, some of you guys might like that, but
We love Jake.
But yeah, so I guess with this podcast, we're going to kind of interview people, talk to people, have different conversations about like strength and conditioning stuff. Today we'll probably talk a bit about strength and conditioning stuff, have a little bit of background to Ironworks. We can talk about nutrition. Our goal is to get some pretty cool people on here. And I guess really just kind of go from there, and every week's going to be different, a little bit of different vibe. And we're just kind of chilling in the gym, talking about random stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, to set that off, I got a question for you, Christian.
Okay.
How far do you think you can throw a 45-pound barbell?
All right. Well, the background on this came from this morning. We were talking about throwing barbells. You got to think of like the size of it and the angle that it's going to be traveling. Can you use two hands? Can you use one hand?
Of course, full body movement, just like they do in the Olympics.
So like if I were to like spin around and swing it.
Oh, shit.
Like can I get some like force going with it?
Yeah, I never even thought about that.
All right, cool. I say 10 feet.
10 feet. Okay.
I feel like if you start spinning around,
Yeah,
you just kind of like, and you let go, almost like the shot put.
Dude, I think you can get way more than 10 feet if you're spinning around.
What does a roll count?
Roll doesn't count. It's where
So it has to where it lands.
Yeah.
I think 10 feet's a good distance.
All right.
Maybe further. I guess it's a lot of force. I'm saying 10 feet.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'll ever test it because I don't really want to throw a bar, but
Maybe one of the bent ones will take it out back.
on the street.
Yeah.
We could probably do it on the turf.
Through a fucking wall.
Maybe we'll follow this up with a video of throwing a barbell on a football field somewhere in half yards.
That would go crazy on YouTube.
Yeah, like barbell tossing competition.
They start doing that strong man.
I guess bounce back on that question. How far would you throw a barbell?
Probably like 8 feet.
88 feet?
No, just 8 feet.
Oh, 8 feet.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's fair. I don't really know. You have to like try to test this out and like try it.
I'm lifting today. Maybe I'll try it.
Yeah, we can use the rack pull one. But
Did you already lift it?
Yeah, I lifted this morning.
Nice.
Rack pulls, concentric squats off the rack, and a bunch of other random stuff that you can do at Lifetime with machines that we can't do here.
How'd your back feel?
Dude, it feels great.
Hell yeah.
It feels great. All right, so let me get into this one. What, on top of like training side of things, everything like that, what is your favorite part of like the training side of like here at Ironworks? Like what, and then we can go down like more of a path on like why we train, how we do, and what we do. Because there's obviously people out there that are curious like what Ironworks is about, like what we do, and obviously I can bounce back on a lot of this too. But I just kind of I'm curious about like your philosophy, what you do training wise, why we do what we do, and how your week looks like with athletes, and I guess really just kind of break down like your training.
Yeah. So
or like your coaching, I guess.
I'll try to do it. Start real broad. I'm sure we'll talk about it more as we go. But before I was training with Ironworks, I was doing like collegiate strength and conditioning, so Olympic lifting, CSCS, NSCA stuff. All the basics. And when I started training with you in Ironworks, obviously found Westside Conjugate, talked to like Bo Ryan down at V23, introduced us to Jason Gusick or Gus from Westside Barbell, who runs Conjugate Tactical, and that's kind of what I've kind of grabbed onto as my philosophy and the framework I use to train. So I kind of attack it. I want my athletes being able to train maximally year round. So whether that means max speed, max repetition, max strength, I want us to be able to perform any of those given needs throughout the year. So our training week can be arranged in a variety of different ways. Obviously, athletes we need to work around their schedule, but we'll have max effort upper, max effort lower, and then dynamic effort lower and upper, and we'll split those into 4 sessions a week, and then try to add in some extra stuff, whether that be speed, conditioning, extra hypertrophy work, even just recovery. I don't know. I think the thing I like most about Ironworks is that we do max effort every week. And we're able to do it in a healthy way, but also like we're working with like athletes and like developing kids who need to be able to like struggle and get through something and experience adversity, which is like under a heavy barbell every single week, which not a lot of kids do that, and that's why they're soft on the field.
I love using the term soft. I think kind of bouncing off a lot of that, like that's like the stuff we do in the weight room. I think the underlying goal is, and this is something I've tried to like push since I started coaching and kind of push here, is like we want every athlete to go like compete at the next level. And that mean you don't have to think of the next level being like a college level. That could be like the next level of like JV to varsity in high school or freshman to JV. You want an athlete to be able to go into the weight room or onto the field, their next season or their next off season training at their school, and the coach be like, holy shit, what did this guy do all off season? Mm-hmm. And you want to like elevate their game, from a performance level, like totally take it to new heights, new levels. And I think the way that we train and the way that, we coach in here and the vibe that we have and the culture that's built, everybody's here to get better. And obviously there's a lot of athletes that do kind of have their days where they come in, they're little shitheads. And it is so what it is, and yeah, so are we. I mean, everybody's like that, but helping these kids like get to the next level is sick, and everybody can be a shithead day in and day out, and it's really not even like being a shithead that you want to like call it that, but like it's just being so distracted sometimes, and the whole goal is to like elevate these guys up and like hearing it come back like, oh, I went and did this weekend, sick. Mm-hmm. Or like whatever it may be, or like some of the guys go down and they perform at this level and it's like, holy shit, where'd this come from?
Yeah.
And you hear it from them, you hear it from the parents, and we see it every day.
Well, exactly. Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. We're with these kids year round. It's not like we see them for seasons. I mean, obviously they might not be in here like during a season as much, but still, some of these kids are here every single day throughout the year. Like Dalton's been here like probably every day since last January, right?
Yeah.
So we know these kids on like a really close level, but we're also able to like with how we communicate, we're able to help them shape into like better adults, and they do get better grades. Dalton, not to speak on his grades, but he used to like not do as well in school, and now I've heard he's been killing it, and has more confidence and all this stuff. Like all our athletes leave with more confidence, which I think is so important. And I think not enough coaches realize that like how they communicate with these young kids makes a huge difference, not only in like how they perform on the field, the court, or whatever, but it's more like how they perform in life and how they see themselves and respond to authority and all that stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think a lot of times you see a kid come in not super confident, and you hear it from their parents, like they want to see more confidence on the field, or from their coaches, because obviously we do communicate with a lot of the coaches that these kids are working with, from a club level to a high school level. I mean, we do work with a lot of the high schools and whatnot. And you hear from their coaches like, well, they just need to be this on the field, or they need to be that in the weight room, or they need to like be this. And it's like, the weight room can instill so much different confidence levels, whether they be walking differently down the hallway at school, or walking onto the field with more confidence. So then they start playing, and you see it. This kid, last season was getting pushed around by guys, and he goes in this season, and all of a sudden he pushes some guys that are his size or bigger than him around, and they're like, oh shit, mm-hmm. Like I can actually compete and play with these guys now. Exactly. And that's like kind of what it's all about for us, and getting these athletes to the next level. I mean, there's so many ideas of what the next level is. It doesn't always have to be like college pro. It could be 8th grade to freshman, like I was saying, or freshman to JV, JV to varsity. But but yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people come in and it's like, well, like, what do you guys do? And that's kind of, I guess, what we do and why we're here. There's a lot of training side of things that go into it. We train, max effort, dynamic effort. We train speed. We train explosiveness. We do speed and agility work. We do technique training, movement work, if you want to call it that. A lot of mobility stuff. But, when it gets down to it, the goal is the same. The end goal is the same. We want to get to the next level.
Yeah, just develop and grow over time.
Yeah. Sick. Well, that's cool. In terms of like that stuff, I guess, on a personal level, what are you training for, this year, and like, what are your goals? Like, I know Dalton's trying to talk you into a powerlifting meet.
Yeah, man. I have zero desire to do a powerlifting meet. And
Why?
I don't know what it is. I love coaching them. I love watching them. Love training dudes. Love training powerlifting myself, but zero desire to compete. It sounds awful. It sounds miserable.
It sounds amazing.
My goal though with powerlifting on my own is to be able to deadlift and squat 500 pounds by the end of the year under 220. That would be super cool.
Probably not gonna happen.
Yeah, probably not. Probably bench 350 would be sick. I'm just trying to stay healthy and be able to lift a lot of weight, and that kind of ties in my other goal. I want to be able to compete in jiu-jitsu, which would be cool. Like if I were to compete in something, that's what I would put my focus on. But yeah, we'll see.
I mean, that's cool. Is the meet that Dalton wants to get you in is the national meet?
No, so it's a week before his national meet. So his is like mid-March is the USAPL Team Nationals, and then a week before that is like a USPA like weekend one. I think it's up at Elevate Barbell.
In Fort Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So for you guys that don't know, Dalton's little backstory, and Josh can probably really expand on this, but Dalton is a Colorado State record powerlifter. He is a senior.
Yeah, senior now in high school.
Senior at Holy Family High School. It kind of started out as a joke, the powerlifting side of things. I mean, he plays lacrosse. Super great kid. Has a little bit of an ego.
Which is funny.
Likes to talk shit.
When he first came in, he was very not confident. He weighs 125 pounds, so he's a very small kid. He expressed he wasn't super confident, but I mean, he just bought into the program. Comes in every single day with a smile on his face and just works hard. It's like the perfect, athlete that you want to come to the gym and start training with you guys, because he just sets the tone for a good day when he comes in, and it's been showing on the platform, set all the state records in both federations. So it's been pretty cool.
Talk about the federations.
Yeah, so he competed in USAPL, and there was existing records there. He went in and broke them. I think his highest there was a 303 squat, 374 dead, and then 170 bench at 125 or 59 kilos. And then USPA, he just decided to compete in a different bar, came in off COVID, and then just set all the records there in his weight class. So yeah, we're hoping he'll probably go to Nationals, USAPL, and then if he likes it, keep lifting. I mean, he still plays lacrosse, so we're still trying to get ready for lacrosse season and all that, so.
Yeah. I mean, and the crazy thing with Dalton, I guess we never really set out to, have, powerlifters training. I mean, it was an idea that we wanted powerlifters training here, but we never set out to, convert these athletes to powerlifters. They Dalton started as a joke, and it started with this kid, Sterling, who played lacrosse, and he's going to school down in Florida now. And he was like, I think Dalton can beat all these records. And he sent a screenshot to me, and then it kind of started getting talked about between everybody. A year ago maybe?
Yeah.
And then it turned into this huge thing with Dalton. And now it's we have these athletes that are like, hey, I kind of want to compete in powerlifting. And one of our football players came up to me a week ago maybe, asked me about it. And then, one of the other lacrosse players messaged me on Instagram that we train. He's like, hey, what do I do to need to compete in powerlifting? And so it's just it keeps growing. And then, I think you have a girl now that may be wanting to do it. And it's these kids are approaching us about it. And the thing about powerlifting, and I guess the way we train it, you look at how you can't lift heavy weights slow.
Yeah.
So people look at powerlifting, it's they're just lifting all these big weights. And it's well, you got to be able to produce this much force to lift 500 pounds.
And it's also only one pillar of our training.
Yeah.
We still hit everything else.
Yeah, and so like when you talk about like pillars, I guess you can expand on that a little bit in terms of like what your ideas are in terms of pillars, because you know like when you look at us on Instagram, you see our guys deadlifting, you see our guys squatting, you know all of our athletes do, you know, sled walks or things like that, right? You know, we don't always see on our Instagram, you don't always see them doing the accessory work because it's just kind of monotonous stuff. You don't always see them doing our speed work. You don't always see them doing this stuff. So I mean, if you could expand a little bit on the pillars, like you know, kind of what our pillars are here.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on what I said each of the days, but how I look at it and how I try to explain it to my athletes is we have a max effort day, and that's where we increase our absolute strength. So no matter our sport, there's always going to be a relative load we have to deal with, whether it's another person, if you're in the field, tactical athlete, whether it's carrying a load. That relative load is generally going to stay about the same. But if we can increase our absolute strength, that's going to make that relative load easier, right? So I argue for max effort strength as one of the main pillars for that, just because of the effects it has across the entire board of, you know, being able to, you know, increase or decrease your relative load, but also able to have more durability if you're going into contact, which a lot of athletes do. If you're getting a lot of reps in, that having that max capacity of strength also helps, which leads me to another pillar, which is dynamic endurance or like a repetition method. And that helps our athlete build that tank, right? So any athlete needs to be able to perform for an X amount of time. Some athletes longer than others, but all of them are going to have to do something in a sustained way. So we need them to be able to train at a high level, right? So we need to be able to do the max effort stuff, but be able to do it over and over again. So another aspect of our training is that dynamic endurance where we're doing, you know, finishers, we're doing a lot of sled work, we're doing things in a controlled fashion that kind of lead to the same physical adaptation that they'll need in the game. And when bouncing off that, our last pillar, one of the ones that's most important that people want the most, is going to be dynamic effort or speed work and power development. And that's one that a lot of people think you need to be. I mean, sprinting is really good for power development, but that's all they do.
It's great, isn't like an accessory to build
Yeah.
explosiveness and like display like force development. Because like
Display.
to be able to move your body, you have to be able to displace force.
Yeah.
Like produce force to displace. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I might have said that wrong, but you kind of get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, what we do in here translates to like the display of what it can do, I guess, if you want to like look at it like that, like a sprint.
An example, like people like power cleans a lot, and I used to love power cleans, and they're great for power development, but they take forever to teach. And we increase speed and power with our dynamic lifts by using banded squats, banded deadlifts in a very controlled way where we're already proficient at the movement, so there's no technical barrier, and now we can actually just work on raw power development instead of, you know, trying to learn how to do a proper power clean or try to do it in a safe way. We try to do things as fast as possible on dynamic effort days and do it with real intent. And I think that's another thing we didn't mention with our programming is we have intent. We train with a super high intent every day. So no matter what our guys are doing, they're going to do a maximum intent. They're going to come in a max effort day, hit a maximum effort lift. Dynamic effort, they're still moving the bar with max intent. And even on repetition methods, they're doing a circuit of reps. They're going to do as many as they can. And the way we program allows them to do this and try their hardest and build that drive that's going to, you know, transfer over the field without burning them out, without only focusing on one aspect of performance like linear periodization and other forms of training like that do.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the great way about the way we train is we can attack all different aspects of like what an athlete needs versus focusing on like one thing 5% this week, 5% this week, 5% this week, 5% this week to a peaking time. Like all of our athletes are ready to go day in and day out almost every day. Yeah. You know, and the athletes that we have, they almost sometimes kind of get annoying because they want to come in and their egos are like, we want to lift heavy.
Well, and they're never sore, which is a good thing in our minds, right? As a strength coach, you don't want to leave your guys destroyed, or girls. But they come in and they're so fresh, like, all right, why are we just doing this today? Why aren't we doing another max? Like, because it's part of the plan, right? So
yeah.
Part of that comes with getting people to buy in. I think that's been the toughest part is getting, you know, people that see training on Instagram and all the other, you know, fancy looking stuff, the cones, the ladders, standing on BOSU walls and shit. And they don't realize that, you know, what we're doing is fundamental. And it's not only going to help them, you know, in the now, but now, like 5 years down the road, they're way stronger and they know how to train. You you know.
You know, and if you go to a collegiate program too, and we've both seen these, we both played at high levels. A collegiate program is not going to include a lot of fluff, and when I talk about fluff, I'm looking at like your Instagram bullshit,
Oh yeah.
where there's a lot of Bosu ball bullshit, and there's a lot of just unnecessary dumb things. You're gonna, you know, a lot of the times you hear our athletes come back and be like, dude, I was like so ready to go in and like do what we did in college. Like it's a lot of the same stuff we did here. And it's because we focus a lot on the basics. You know, your basics are your typical strength and conditioning movements, and the reason they're so focused on is because they're what works.
Exactly.
You know, you don't need to go on Instagram and see Antonio Brown standing on a Bosu ball with his eyes closed, catching a ball while also doing a curl in one arm. Like,
Yeah.
and not that he's done that, but I've seen a lot of stupid shit from some of these guys. And, you know, you talk about like that and you look at like what Devontae Adams says a couple weeks ago, and I don't know if you saw that. He's the Green Bay guy. And he comes out and he's like, I don't know why all these dudes are doing this Instagram bullshit. And this isn't word for word, but like he's, you know, these guys are coming out and doing all this Instagram stuff. Like, we're football players. Go run routes, go sprint, go do this, go do that. Like, why are we doing this like Instagram stuff?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like, what's the point? And when it comes down to it, like, how does that apply? Like, what is standing on a Bosu ball apply to the field? Like, how, like, you're never going to be on an uneven, bouncy surface unless you're playing slam ball basketball where you're bouncing on trampolines before you dunk a basketball. I don't even know if that's still a sport.
It should be, and they would all be training on Bosu balls.
Yeah, they probably would be, because in that sense, it makes sense in that sport.
Exactly.
But like, tell me what sport, what athlete's going to be on a Bosu ball on a field or a court?
Exactly. I think it's just misinformation in media, you know, which kind of causes a problem because we want to be so scientific with things that even some of the science has gotten lost. And it's hard to convince, you know, sports coaches who have an idea of their sport and what they need, and they don't understand how to get there.
Yeah.
You know, because we are looking and trying to solve the same exact problem. We are just looking a little bit more upstream at the root of the problem and solving it in a simpler way. And I don't think people understand that as much. And I think that's the biggest thing with our program too, is just it's simple as fuck.
Yeah.
Like, what we do isn't hard. It's just we're able to organize it in a way to make it look cool and harder.
And that's the thing, is like the organization of it is really where the keys are placed. You know, if you don't understand how to properly load the week, or properly, like, hey, like, we did max effort upper on Wednesday. How long does it take to recover from that? Is it smart to come in the next day and try to smash like a heavy press of some sort?
Exactly.
Probably not, because your central nervous system's screwed in that situation.
And that's even super simplified to a day to day. We think like week to week with how much load leading up to, you know, other aspects of their sport, because they still, like I say all the time is, and I heard this from Jason Gusick from Westside. He said strength conditioning is just a slice of the pie, and there's all these other slices that are other skills. So like we need to make sure that we're doing ours in an efficient way, so we're not freaking blasting them so they can't even practice all the other things they need to practice.
Yeah. You know, and the thing too is like a lot of parents will come in, a lot of athletes come in, it's like, well, like I have strength class at school, or I have practice in the morning before school, like, are we going to overlap? And it's like, well, what are you doing in that class? Well, we have like 6 stations in an hour, and like we have to get through this much stuff. I'm like, okay, well, how hard are you actually going?
Yeah.
Not very hard. What's the organization on that? How many days a week do you have that? Okay, well, you're not really getting anything done there. So you come here, our training's so focused and so specific that like we're not going to crush an athlete.
Yeah. And it's
When
different athlete to athlete too.
Yeah, exactly. And like when an athlete first starts here, like, yeah, you probably are going to be sore as shit for the first couple of weeks. And that's not our goal, but we're trying to get your work capacity up to be able to handle the workload that you're going to be, you know, taking over the course of a season, practice. I mean, you look at football players or a football team, right? If you look at the high school level, you got Monday through Saturday. Sundays are off. Okay, how do we get an athlete ready for that workload,
And
right?
sustain that workload through the season.
And not fall off towards the end. You know, some of these teams, you look at the NFL playoffs or like the college playoff, these strength coaches at that level understand that, and they're set up to, you know, get these guys to peak in the national championship game. You know, I mean, that's why Georgia and Alabama are able to come out and play at the level they do, and Georgia comes in and plays and outplays Alabama in this last week. You know what I mean? Or like you look at these NFL teams, or like Aaron Rodgers is a good example. He's just a freak athlete. You look at Tom Brady. He's 44 and he's still playing at the top of his game.
Yeah.
He has a great team behind him, you know, organization of his workouts, his training, his recovery.
Well, yeah, and you got to think like especially these college programs, especially like Alabama, Georgia, all these big teams. They have everything so organized and calculated. They control everything in these guys' lives.
Yeah.
Right? So these athletes, what they eat, when they're able to like have their own time. So they have the advantage of being able to control every specific things, and maybe that's why they can do things like clean and jerks, right, or whatever, because they are able to get that technical barrier down. So I think being in the private world kind of presents a different challenge where we're trying to deal with all these other schedules that we have no control over.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have control over practice. We don't have control over the stress they're feeling from school, or like what they're doing in their strength class, or what their coaches think they need to be doing at practice, running 60 wind sprints, or we can only control what we have going on here in the gym, and we can control what happens during our sessions. We can't control what goes on outside of it. So like communication's huge for our athletes and our parents, and building relationships with coaches and helping kind of design some of their programming. But if an athlete doesn't talk to us and complains like 6 months later about his back's being sore, like, why didn't you communicate this months back? I mean, I had a college lacrosse player coming in over winter break, and he's like, oh, my back hurts like from squats that I did at home the other day. I'm like, well, like, when did that start? He's like, oh, like last May. Like, you didn't want to talk to your trainers at school or us or tell anybody anything about it, because we could have assessed this or like sent you somewhere to get it looked at.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, so I guess to finish it up, I know Josh has a few cool affiliate partnerships with some stuff. I don't know if you want to mention them on this, but he's like big on like the breath belt and things like that. So,
well, I will say,
yeah, go for it.
My number one favorite pre-workout is gonna be Ironworks.
Ironwolf, bro.
Oh shit!
You can't even. Damn.
Ironwolf pre-workout. You can find it on our website, ironworksperformance.com. You can find it on ironwolf.com.
Yeah, wolfsups.com.
Wolfsups.com.
Yeah.
Thank you. Terrible announcing.
Okay.
But if you do want to use my code, JOCO10, all caps, 10% off.
Product
checkout.
placement. Product placement. I just know there's some things that he like uses like every day. You got the breath belt on.
Yeah, every day. I always wear the breath belt. Just look into it. I'm not even going to try and sell that, because if you need it and you want to try it, just freaking try it.
Can you explain what it does?
Yeah, so it kind of forces you to brace in a way, and it helps teach people how to brace. So for example, if I'm programming someone trying to do powerlifting, it's going to be hard for me to be able to teach them how to brace over a phone call or whatever. So if they can afford the belt, it'll force them into a brace, because it puts pressure around your midsection, almost like a waist trainer, but it's a lot more tension. And every time you let a breath out, it squeezes you, and to inhale, you have to push against the brace, right? So exactly like you do on a belt when you're squatting or deadlifting. And I use this. I've been wearing it through all my workouts. Some powerlifters who squat a lot more than me will put the actual belt on. But yeah, it's been good for me. It's been helping me connect to my core more. I feel like I have a better core now, but it's been good. I don't have a discount code or anything, but if you want one, just let me know. And then I do have a partnership with Zero Shoes. I don't care what kind of barefoot shoes you get, you should probably wear barefoot shoes, wide toe box, zero drop heel. Your feet will appreciate you later in life when you don't have bunions and all the other shit that's wrong with your lower body. Yeah, we probably do a whole fucking episode on that.
We could talk about that next time.
Yeah.
Or another time. But yeah. Yeah, not any like product placement stuff, but there's some stuff that we use here daily. Like Josh wears his shoes every day. He also wears Crocs every day, but that's nothing really.
Shout out Crocs. I want that sponsorship.
But obviously, we do have Ironwolf pre-workout. That's kind of like our in-house.
And creatine.
And creatine now. That's launching this weekend. It's available up on our website, wolfsups.com. If you want a discount code on your first order, obviously you can use Josh's code, but Wolf10 also gets you 10% off.
It is genuinely delicious. It is a good workout.
And our creatine's completely unflavored. Each bottle's 100 scoops or 500 grams. So it just depends on what you're scooping. There's 100 servings in it. And that's a whole nother conversation on creatine and why athletes need to be taking creatine.
Yeah.
We could go on and on about that. I'm not going to get into that today.
Yeah, we'll butcher the science another day.
Yeah, but take some creatine, grab some Ironwolf creatine.
Drink water.
Drink a lot of water, and in the words of David Goggins, stay hard.